E.
Yeah.
Go on. Hello, hello.
Hey, this.
So do we have an agenda for today? Sorry, I'm just getting things together here.
Oh, no light.
Hello.
Look. Yeah, I mean, we've got the meeting agenda extracted one, but I'm not sure what you guys want to pull from there or if there's other pressing issues. Let's see. Hello, Sebastian. I see in there. This is that agenda. I feel like we can knock some of this out.
Yeah, I agree. This is good stuff. Okay. By the way, how did looks like y'all got that release out? Everything went smooth last week?
Yeah.
Good. We'll see.
Never not sketch, but or a little scary, but it was fine.
Yeah, I understand that. The unable to undo it is a very hard thing to get used to. So
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we pushed a patch, we released it, so
yeah, cool. Yeah, and it looks like there's just one small report of an issue with it, but nothing too big. So okay, cool. Do we want to maybe wait another minute or two, see if anybody else can come, and then we can get started with this.
Sure.
There's oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I see what you say. There's a report from 2 hours ago or something about unpatched path to regex problem, blah, blah, blah. I didn't read through this yet, but that's in the version we released. We updated it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, I think, going to be every time we release a CVE, this is probably somebody's going to make this exact issue because it's happened, I think, every time so far, which is like, no, we promise it's patched. That's the whole point of releasing the CVE. Like, it's there. But in this case, it looks like there's somebody hit the thing Blake was concerned about people hitting. So, that maybe is also inevitable, but we need to figure out. Probably just he said he was going to circle back. I don't know if he'll be able to make it today, but
Yeah, somebody is saying that they're hitting a type error. Path regex is not a function, but
yeah,
I can look at this later or something.
Also, I guess Sebastian, since you're here, I just wanted to mention I just get very anxious when people post these types of initial issues. Like it's not patched before, and so the reason I mentioned that in the thread, before we reply at all, ever to anything where somebody is claiming it is a security thing, everybody, across the board should take a beat and make sure we circle around with the team and make sure there wasn't something we were unaware of or missing, and that we actually address the worry. Because there have been times in the past where it's caused churn unnecessarily, and we just need to be careful, because especially if we missed something, that's like we got to scramble and either fix it, or if it's one that's like an unpatched vulnerability, if they really, the way they phrased that, which I think was my original like knee-jerk reaction, was unpatched vulnerability. And that has happened a bunch of times where it's an actual premature disclosure for one reason or another. And in those cases, we immediately delete the issue, because those things need to be handled via the secure security reporting guidelines. And so when I replied originally saying, let's be careful about replying to you in the Slack thread, it was because of that initial reading of the headline, and I was concerned that this was going to unearth some new details about an actually unpatched security vulnerability. And so I think one thing we should add to maybe the triage guide, or I don't know where we need to put it, but we should be very clear to everybody that security issues need to go through a more rigorous thing before we reply. And so to me, that would mean probably posting in the Slack, or honestly, I think it brings up, this is a new thing for us. It brings up a good point on whether or not, because I don't think we've ever had a triage group member at all reply before. Like Doug used to reply to a lot of these and get things sorted out or delete them immediately. And I'm wondering if maybe we need to do some updating of either our docs or our training, just to make sure we say raise those ones before we reply to again, somewhere private. It doesn't need to be a big deal, and it's probably not a big problem. It just needs to be somewhere off the thread, because there's all these security companies trolling those things to go and make big issues about, to make, if it wasn't a CVE that we had just patched, right? There are people who are looking in these issues literally just to go find and add it into Sneak or whatever. And they won't listen to us, and we get very little control once they've done that. So we need to just be very conscientious about not accidentally making it more confusing or whatever for them. And so to me, that is until we have a new CNA, that will help. But for this example, I would definitely have preferred if we didn't reply at all until Blake could reply, because Blake is the one driving that security release. And so we just need to be a little bit more clear, I think, as a team, on how we want to handle things that are related to coming from an outside party, that are related to security reporting and that stuff. I hope that made sense. I haven't pulled up the translations and stuff to make sure I set my language, but I hope, let me know if that made sense, or if you have questions.
So for a long story short, I understand it that we should confirm everything before we reply to such security vulnerabilities or potential issues, correct?
Yeah, just security things. Everything else, obviously, completely fair here. But we have that private triage team and the triage working group for a reason. These things need to be properly disclosed, and we have to have. We're trying to improve. This is part of, actually, Ulysses, you mentioned updating the docs, and we have something for updating security guidelines for next year. So that might actually go hand in hand. But basically, we're trying to develop a better, more robust process for this. And so right now we don't have very, I don't think we have really any. Like I actually searched the triage guide page for the word security at all, and it's not even mentioned once, which is a pretty big miss. But basically, we want to just be pushing all of the security things through the more formal process. And so I think for this kind of thing, where you all as triage members and first responders to these, I think it just was important to mention, like, it's better to not reply and then go and confirm and wait and make sure we've got all the details straight than to reply, even if the reply is good. Like Sebastian, your reply was very good and correct, right? But it's just a matter of making sure that like all the ducks are in a row, and so we're not making churn and making people think we're either disorganized or not, handling the security stuff properly. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No problem. I just wanted to uh I realize that this is a bit different approach, because I would also think that replying fast to security issues that are important, even if it's like a reply without details, we mark that, okay, we see this, we just need a bit more time to, um, establish everything on our side, and we'll get to you right soon, because this is important stuff. That's from
For what it's worth, that's exactly what we do in email, which is the supported security reporting channel. We do that exact process, but we cannot and should not do that in a public GitHub forum, because these things need to be sensitively handled in case it turns out we discover through the process a patch that needs to go out. Because otherwise, we've revealed a 0-day publicly, right? And that's improper handling. So we do exactly what you're talking about. And this is why I mentioned it, because what probably we need to have better docs around is we probably need to have a documented process that just says, if you open the issue and it mentions security, it's going to be deleted. Here's the correct email. Like, I don't, in this case, that was one that patched last week, and the CVE was issued by us. And so it's like a little bit different, I think, in this case. But there's been a ton of historical examples where people are confused and they're trying to do what they think is the right thing, but it's very much the wrong thing, which is report something on the GitHub issue tracker, right? And if it's security related at all, it needs to go through the documented security process, which is an email address, right? And so I agree that it is important to address them fast, but it's not important to address them fast when it's the wrong process, right? Which is what I'm saying they're doing on the public GitHub.
Yeah, actually, it happened quite often that we get some people reporting about security issues. I would say like the most common recently was like people complaining about the typical auto scan corporate pipeline job, whatever you name it, and they got positive on this kind of thing. So normally we try to close those, but there are cases where people actually try to report security things on a public issue. That's because sometimes the people who report that are not familiar on how to do it. I mean, how to properly report security. So in those cases, the best option is to take a snapshot, for example, of that content, or just to do a dump in a doc or something like that, and just delete the issue. So just to avoid that, in case that is a positive case or whatever, which so far until now never happened. Then we avoid that other people can exploit that, right? So I think definitely we need to update this in the triage guide, so this is more clear on how this is supposed to happen. Also, it's important to notice that from the triage team, I think I'm the only one who has permissions to lock files, I mean, to lock issues and remove issues and so on. So maybe the process there in the guidelines should be something like do an escalation to the security triage team or to the TC directly, so we can just kind of close this. But yeah, it's a tricky thing, honestly. And also some people, when you even close the issue, they reopen it several times. So it's like they don't get the the message clear. So yeah, it's a little bit tricky, honestly. But yeah, it's one of the biggest challenges here is like security can be very opinionated sometimes, especially when people report things. And it's very easy to, just get a massive flame on Twitter easily without nothing really. But yeah, it can happen. So yeah, that's why we are kind of sensitive here. But yeah, honestly, I think Sebastian did a very good response. But yeah, the idea in the future is like try to coordinate this with the triage team. I mean, security triage team.
Cool. Do you guys want to look at the agenda?
Yeah.
We've got at the top, we had the issue about on the websites, the separate or merge the change logs on the website. I don't have a super strong opinion. I dropped the issue link again in here. I don't have a super strong opinion on this. Wes, you would love to comment about it, basically. We've merged the
Where did
4x and the 5x.
Where is my comment? Because it's not in this thread, and I'm wondering if where
Yeah, it's
was
the second link in the body.
second link? Okay.
It's on the PR that landed to change it.
Yeah. Okay. So my thought.
Comment was here.
Yeah. I found that. Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I remembered what I had written. I'm not strongly opinionated, really, either way. But I think the idea, and I don't know if this was ever done with the 3.0 back in the day, but the idea was to have them sectioned just to make it easier to search. Now, is that important still? I don't really know. I mean, we don't want to keep a never-ending list of release changelog in one single file once we go further, would be my guess, but I think we would need to do some changes to the website structure to get that to maybe look more reasonable and be better. So like, I kind of think it's all right that it did merge and that we have this for now, but it seems to me like we long-term probably do want separate ones. I don't know. I'm saying that with a question mark because I'm not super strongly opinionated. If somebody has like a really strong opinion, I'm happy to probably change mine.
I don't care a lot one way or another. I'm not sure if that, I'm not sure that we need to maintain a changelog on the site at all for outside of GitHub, etc. But I think it's fine.
I do think that is an interesting question. I don't think that's been posed here. Has it? That do we like? Have we asked the question of do we even need a website version, or vice versa? Actually, I mean, I think we need the releases and the commits because those that's in the Git history or whatever. But like, have we ever talked about only having one?
Not specifically, no. I mean, Ulysses linked to the longer discussion about history.md just in general, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges, I mean, background context on that is like we right now have like historically been maintaining this history.md file with the what you're supposed to take care when we do a release, right? So you just check that and you get the full context, right? So the idea there is like, should I update or not, right? So I think right now in the website, we try to bring this information, like trying to copycat this information, which is nice. But the question here is like, as we are doing already releases, like GitHub releases, and we are doing tags, so we're supposed to do both things. Sometimes we do only tags, sometimes we do releases, but hopefully one day, I mean, tags we do all the time, but sometimes we do the releases and sometimes not. If we include already the history in the releases, especially if we are using that tool to make the proposal for the releases, then maybe makes sense to start to moving away from the history.md. And in that case, maybe what the website should do is just to, scan for the release availables for the project that we want to track there and just add a link, basically, right? So it's going to be like, you want to check the history of Express 4.2.1, so just click here, right? So that way it's not going to be an endless document full of stuff and list and things ongoing. Yeah, but that's a longer discussion. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, my preference first and foremost is to not have duplicate information, because that will always in one way or another, to one degree or another, lead to concurrency issues, and something's not updated and the other thing's not updated, and then like there should be one source of truth. If it's in another place, if it's like a true mirror or something that's automatically updated, like maybe you could justify that, but other than that, I would not like to see it duplicated in both places. As for like the broader conversation around the changelog, do we need to still maintain the changelog, which is at history.md, versus like just using GitHub releases? There is something to be said for having a vendor neutral system of record, and also that everything is just in Git. That everything is like within the repo and not in, releases, which is a proprietary GitHub thing. I realize that the risk of us leaving that ecosystem for source control is very low. But there's so much value that you get out of Git and out of version control in Git, and you lose that if you get rid of that entirely and just rely on releases, which can be edited. You can change the information there. There's not a versioning control scheme for it. You lose that. So at the same time, I don't have strong feelings about this. On the flip side of that is, well, it's more things to maintain, the longer that you've got the actual change log. But that can also be maybe somehow partially generated, or like in the same way that the release information can be generated automatically from the Git log and such. So I'll stop there. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, I'll build on that, but I am actually pretty strongly opinionated here. It has to be in a file in the repo. I do not think GitHub releases alone is ever enough. So I think that aligns, Chris, with what you said, but takes it the step further on the opinion front. You have to be able to ship something and then go back to the source and find that it is in fact true, who did it, when, and where. And I think that traceability starts actually with a changelog. Yes, the commit history is the official end thing, but you always need a translation layer for the humans to be able to quickly scan and say, that looks like the thing I think might be the problem, because people are going to need to bisect and people are going to need to do all these other things. And the alternative to not having it in a changelog, but still having that ability, is having really, really robust commit messages. And frankly, I think that's untenable. I don't think we can really achieve that. I think, we can try with automation and tooling, but I've seen those become more of a burden than value in enough cases that I'm hesitant. I'm not against it, but I'm definitely hesitant. Like for what it's worth, I literally I love conventional commits, and not that form necessarily, but just the idea. And I love the tooling like commit lint that can go with that once you take an opinion. So I'm not saying I'm opposed to doing that as well. But I think in the end, the human who does the release has a responsibility to curate the message to everybody. And that's the sign off that you're doing is basically, here's the things, the work that went into this, and having that in the changelog with a name on it, along with who did the release, is I think an important quality that we should try to maintain. And so to that note, I think it should actually be a requirement that we automate changelog generation. So I think there's plenty of tools that do this. Like we could literally choose out of probably 20 good tools, depending on what qualities we would want. So it's not like we're missing the tooling. And in my opinion, it should be done at the time of generating the release, not during each change being landed. I think that's the biggest problem with our current. I'm not on video, but I'm doing quotes. Our current quote process, because it's very manual, and we do these stupid things where we ask people to update, amend their commit and add the history MD change, and that's really disruptive to the day-in-day work. So I'd like to see us get rid of that but I'm strongly of you know, we need to keep the changelog file. I do think it should be called changelog, not history, but you know, we can figure that out as well. But that's, you know, bike shedding. But I think the key thing is there are tools out there that will actually just do all of this for us. So we don't need to be doing this on the hard way. We can do it the easy way. Honestly, I think this falls into like automating releases in general a little bit, because for example, release please is pretty great at this. Like it generates the changelog, commits it to the repo. It generates a PR for you that's automatically updated every time you merge to main or master, whatever your primary branch is. It generates a GitHub release when you actually merge it. Like it does every single piece of the process that we need. So I think we should just be assessing something like that and then just buying into the relatively good opinions that it already has. That's my opinion there, but that's like totally discussion. I just want to make sure we have the foundationally, I'd be opposed if we wanted to do anything other than keep a changelog file. Like GitHub releases alone to me is just not enough. Yeah, Jean.
So no, I was going to say, so I agree with what you are saying and what you just said. It just, I'm seeing, and that's an interesting transition after your last sentence about seeing some projects that migrate to not keeping the changelog or history MD, but using GitHub release for that. And what would be the pro/con between the both of them? Because there is also, and I think now it's a bit less a topic, but from a few months ago or a year ago now, there was a discussion, I think, on Twitter based on what should be part of a package JSON that take place or increase the size of a package, but it's not useful for the end user. Mostly for front-end application, I agree, or serverless, but it's also part of if you have a history MD or changelog MD that is growing, when do you cut it?
You never cut it. You brought up a couple of things, and there's no reason to cut it ever. You gain absolutely nothing from that. It's a couple of bytes of text. As for like you're talking about bundle size, well, you shouldn't be shipping that. I would not support shipping changelog MD as part of the package. You shouldn't be shipping that. Or at least I would find it hard to argue why you should or you should ship it. But if you're concerned about bundle size, there's absolutely no reason you need to be shipping a changelog MD file. And the other aspect that you had mentioned was the differences between the GitHub release page versus like the maintaining a file. I think the biggest one, and I mentioned this earlier, was the revision control, Git history. You do not have that when it comes to Git releases. The release information is mutable. In fact, you can just delete it. You can edit it. It could say something today, and it could say something completely different tomorrow. And while that's true of the changelog as well, that's a file that's under revision control. And so there's a ton of value that you get from that. Wes?
Yeah, I think you answered the two same exact way I would have. If that, yeah. Okay, cool. That's John. I just was gonna say, does that answer? But I
No,
see.
yeah, answer everything. Just was discussing about that because some projects are moving to the GitHub release. Not a lot, but yeah. But I agree with everything you are just saying. You both.
Yeah, I would prefer if we don't move to only that. That's the one thing I wanted to make sure personally. I want to be able to go through a Git change log and a Git history and see it in relation. Like I actually have used this multiple times debugging, is going back to a specific version release, reading the latest entry in the change log as an indicator of finding the stuff that went out around that time. And so I've done like Git bisects where I'm actually bisecting. And then when I find what I think is the thing, I go read the change log at that point in the history to see if it looks like, you know, something that was landed around then made sense. And so having that in the Git source. Now, I agree completely with Chris on we don't need to ship that. And if that's something people are concerned now, I'm not concerned because I think people don't actually understand what is going on and causing their installs to be slow. I've seen this 100 times and they always are misattributing it to bundle size. which is not really a factor, but especially not for the changelog. But we can easily just remove that. So I think that, I mean, if we say that that's what we really want to do, I think that's an easy thing to just, we can go add. We have to be a little careful about files and npm ignore, and like there's a few like caveats there that historically have bitten people by accidentally messing things up. But as long as we're careful about it and have the proper testing in place, we can easily start adding npm ignore entries for the changelog.md. We just got to be very careful. Don't merge a PR that just adds a npm changelog or a files or a directories key. That those are major changes we have to address. So you can't just merge them, but we should be working toward having a slim, getting rid of the files that just don't need to be in the published package.
Oh, do we not actually specify a files section in package.json?
We do. It just also includes some MD files, license, history, README.
License has to ship.
Right.
I think that's not even an option.
I think it depends on the package, though, is what I meant. I think Express does, but I think some other packages don't. So just something to consider.
Okay, I thought license was one of the things that you had, like it wasn't even, you couldn't even opt out of that. Like you can't, in the same way you can't opt out of like a package.json. Okay. Now I forget what I actually had raised my hand for. Oh, just to be clear, I wasn't suggesting that we would okay, we want to use a changelog or a history MD, whatever we're calling it. I wasn't suggesting that therefore not use the GitHub releases feature. I think continue using GitHub release feature. I think usually they're auto-generated or whatever. That's great. I hate going to a project and seeing that there's, no releases in GitHub and there's all kinds of releases in reality, or that there's a release and there's no information on what commits or changes went into it. That's quite annoying. So I would still in favor of using GitHub releases, but not deleting history.md and continuing to use that and update it.
Well, it sounds like we're generally all in agreement. We want both releases and a committed changelog and some generation around it. Right? Is that we generally?
Yeah, I think the desire is mostly just to not have to ever manually update the history or whatever, basically.
Yeah, God, please.
I think that's the real desire here. Because I know Blake very much so wants to move away from having to manually edit history.md. And I think he stopped doing it in Path to Regex or something. I forget, but I know he was opinionated about it. I'm losing steam. I'll be honest. I'm losing steam today on this December Monday. But do you guys want to let's move on? So we do have something on here which
wait, John, one sec though.
Yeah.
You mentioned that, and I just want to do this here because but I don't have Blake. He did delete it, and he didn't make a changelog in Cookie. So
changelog entry.
Yeah, he did not make a changelog in Cookie. So that actually doesn't meet what I was hoping we would set as our foundational requirements. I didn't check Path to Regex. I was
Right. So yeah, I think his desire is to not have a flat file, but to lean specifically on GitHub releases. Yeah, there's GitHub releases for that stuff.
This is the thing I'm pretty opposed to. That's the thing I'm directly opposed to. I think we have to have a file for the points Chris and I were making.
There's a MD in Path to Regex, but it hasn't been updated in 5 years.
Yeah, so I think the desire is largely just to, just remove the effort to update that basically. So,
yeah, we should get.
I don't know
opinion on this before we do anything there, but as maybe he has a really good reason. But to me, it seems that you can't get away from having something in the source. So I don't think we can rely on just GitHub releases. But that means we need to revisit what happened in Cookie, right?
Yeah, we could.
I think we can also allow for the possibility of having a different you know, different modes or different packages.
That's another big question that we have not yet had a discussion about, but I don't know if we're ready to do that one right now. Maybe we move on to what, John, and we can revisit. Okay.
I'm just looking at the agenda that we have in here. But so the next one is, we've had this open for a while, but it's about adding committers to Express.js comp. It was opened by Rand a while ago. So Sebastian was one of the folks in here, but he's become a repo captain since. And then we have two other folks, Carlos and Chris Dell, who are being nominated for commit rights on Express.js comp. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm not sure to thumbs up or thumbs down on adding some new committers to the repo. Basically, I don't have a strong. I'm not sure. Basically, I've seen these folks doing work in the repo and whatnot. I don't know if we want to add a couple more people that have right perms to their website right now. Basically, so I don't know if you guys have opinions here.
Oh, sorry, Wes, you had your hand.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm generally +1. I think the website definitely is a great place to start folks, building the trust and getting involved and all that. So I think that's really good. I do think that there have been a couple of PRs that had some content in them that I'm a little unsure of. So there, because it was like contribution document, like the specific one that I'm worried about was the contributing documentation, talking about like you have to open a PR or an issue to request approval before opening a PR. And that one is like, I don't know, it might just be a language, like we just need to refine the language. Maybe the idea that they were trying to represent was like, you should, if you are worried about doing work that might not get merged, right? Like that. But the defining line there of saying you must was like fairly problematic to me. And so I don't want I want to make sure that the folks who we onboard, because I think maybe it was it Chris maybe who was leading that PR? I can't remember for sure. I kind of think it was. We just need to make sure that there's folks, whether that's Rand or one of us, around to help refine those things before they land, because the wording on the website matters, right, to new contributors. And if I was a new contributor and I saw you must ask for permission to open a PR, I'd be like, that's not very open sourcey. Like that's pretty gatekeeping, and like, to me that is not a very open policy. And we want to have really open policies that like welcome new contributors, which may include advice to open an issue, to just say like, hey, before you spend a lot of time on something, open an issue to make sure we're all on the same page. But that's not you must, right? And you must means quite a bit different to me. So I just want to make sure we have the right mentorship and coaching and, folks on board to like be able to help make sure we're not, landing something that maybe Chris didn't realize implied more than it should have, right? And I'm not sure we have that today. That's my only concern.
Thanks, Wes. So you went into like, I have thoughts on that as well, but going back to the original topic for a second. Sorry, I'm just taking a quick note here so I don't forget. You had mentioned, oh, the guidance on PR must be an issue, that sort of thing. Okay, sorry. I support giving regular contributors right access per our governance. That sounds perfectly reasonable to me. With the only caveat that I would say, and this came up not too long ago as well, which is that we need to make sure that we have proper security controls in place. Right access alone shouldn't provide so much risk that you're worried about onboarding new contributors because they're new and there's a lot of implicit trust that happens, which is great, but you need to make sure you have security controls to prevent damage. So as long as proper security controls are in place, then that's fine. We can give people, even if they're newer contributors, as long as they've established some level of trust, which clearly they have, if they're being nominated is the wrong word, but if they're being nominated by Rand, for example, in this case, that's a strong signal, right? So that's totally fine. A quick cursory view on the repo that they would be getting write access to only reveals one concerning thing for me, and that's that force pushing is allowed on the default branch, which is not good. And as I've said before, I'm less worried about that as a malicious actor. I'm more worried about that as somebody doing something by accident and rewriting the entire history of the repository, and it's the main one. So I would like to see this cleaned up a bit. I see that require linear history is also turned on, which is fine. That might be what's necessitating the force push, but we just need to make sure, like, you've got to have a failure mode analysis and go, okay, if somebody makes a mistake, what's the recourse for this? How do we fix this? How do we do damage control? And so that is my only concern with giving, and that's true of giving anybody write access. Doesn't matter who it is. So those are my thoughts on that. And then the thing on that Wes then mentioned about the in the contributing guide, I think, of express.js.com repo. Yeah, that there was something in there, or being proposed to be in there, about you must get an issue, must create an issue, and you must receive like an approval. Yeah, I agree. I not that doesn't really resonate well. And I think that you can really accomplish the same thing and just relaxing that language a little bit, just by providing guidance around, hey, if you're going to create a PR, maybe create an issue first. Maybe before you spend a bunch of time, talk to people on the project before, it's not like you need a permission, but at least make sure that you're not wasting a bunch of time. I think you can write guidance around that doesn't seem so gatekeeping. I'll stop there. Wes?
Yeah, so it sounds to me, I'm fine if we want to block or lock down the branch just for force pushing. I think we should ask Rand if he's using that for anything, but I doubt he is. My guess would be that there was just not, a lot of thought put into that historically. So it's probably something we could just turn on, and if somebody complains, then we maybe turn it back off to figure out why or something. Like, does that seem like a reasonable action item out of this?
Yeah, it's very easy to change a setting, and frankly, I just went and did it actually. So I've unchecked the
cool.
box.
There you go. I had it unchecked on my side.
If you need to force push, you go into settings and you turn it on again, right? And I do that across repos sometimes too, where like the default security set will be one thing, and then like, okay, if I really need to do this thing, I will flip the bit just for that moment, to bypass that protection. But it's that's an important control. You're doing it very deliberately. You're like, okay, I'm needing to be super careful with this. Maybe I'm making a copy of the entire repo before I do that sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of that, and we should probably think about how we apply that across the rest of the repos too. But but my guess is just historically it was just not a big risk, and so nobody tried to clean that up. So then moving back though, one of the things that I think is interesting here is I'm actually not even sure we really need a contributing guide on the website, or if we do, if it shouldn't just be copied and pasted from the whatever our main one would be, which maybe needs some love. But so I am wondering, like, in those kind of things, how is the website team? Because I'm not really involved in the website. Like, frankly, I'm not sure I can be right now, and I'm not sure I really want to be one leading any of those kind of things ever. But I am wondering this, since it is the sort of public, it's the public face of the project, we need to make sure that what lands on it aligns with the project in general. So I'm wondering, like, I don't know, Sebastian and John, I think you're also, aren't you also a repo captain on there? I can't remember now. Okay.
I am, yep.
So like, how are you all thinking about the website and the rest of the project, and how that content sort of gets produced and merged together? Like, are you reading, like for this one that's the contributing guide, are you reading the contributing guides that are in Express and then trying to adjust them? Is there a reason why we wouldn't have just applied these changes straight to the contributing guide in the Express repo? Like, what's the sort of thought
So
process?
yeah, I know you're not asking me, but I did have a response. I think it does make sense to have a separate contributing guide. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not like more of an extension to another one, or it could certainly be. But like if you look at it right now, for example, it has information on translations and things, and these things would not apply to the Express repo itself or other projects. There's going to be like probably a move to like machine translation, and so this contributing guide here will hopefully end up including guidance on how to write documentation to facilitate better machine translations. And having like one big mega contributing guide for Express and everything under the sun in Express that also includes that, I think just degrades, signal to noise ratio.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding here though, but I just want to call out that the title of that page is contributing to Express.
It's contributing to Express.js.com.
No. And this, okay, so there's a subsection. The title in the document, the MD file here is contributing to Express. Maybe I'm misunderstanding.
What are you looking at? I'm looking at the Express.com repo.
The PR that Sebastian linked here, that was the one that raised the concern for me. There is a file in here that's toward the bottom. Oh, there's two files here that have been edited that. I misread something here probably.
I wasn't looking at a PR. I was just looking at the mainline content in Express.js.com repo, just so you know.
Okay.
We're looking at different things.
But to answer your question a bit, Wes, about how people are thinking about it, I mean, that's the thing, is I don't think there's been a lot of thought. Like, I haven't sat down and talked to Sebastian or Rand about like the direction for the website or what's going on right now. I think it's just from what I've been seeing, it's just typical open source, like, this file existed, let me make a change to it to improve it, or this is what's on the website right now. How can I tweak this wording, or how can I change this nav or whatever? Basically, we're just people are just iteratively making small improvements and changes based on what is already there. So with this, there is an existing contributing guide. Somebody opened a PR to expand it, create it, change it, make it better. There was an existing one which walked through the website specifically, and so that's what this PR is basically to try to just iterate on those guidelines and clean it up basically. So that's my concern about like adding new people with right now. And I wouldn't block it, but it's just like, I think we do need to get basically like what are we trying to do here with the site? I think the original goals with it, at least with the V5 effort, was like, that's where the docs live for V5. We need to make sure the docs are written and they're there, and that the site is ready to have V5 as latest be the docs basically. Within that, that's a narrowish scope, one that we haven't achieved yet even, but so there's that, but then there's a bunch of software written on the website itself as a piece of software, which is being iterated on and changed basically. So yeah, there's a lot going on with the site, but I'm not sure if there's like an overarching goal of what we're trying to get done there basically. So, but improving things here and there a little bit, but yeah, that's like my hesitation to bring new people in right now, is just there's a lot to change. And so if people want to come in and make those changes and we give them right to do so, there's a big service area they can make changes on. So that is to say just that, like, we just need to make sure that we have a goal or a unifying vision of what we're trying to do with the website. So there's a lot of improvement we could do there, but I don't think that, like, we floated ideas around in the past. The translations is one that, always brings a lot of attention, because we have translations from years donated, but they are out of date, and there's always a new language that we're uncovering that could be added and stuff like that. So it's a lot of things around that, but otherwise there's a lot of like iterative UI changes and stuff that could be done to the site And there's a lot of that's been happening lately, basically. So
Awesome. Thank you for that. I kind of thought that was the case, but I wanted to, ask because I'm, like I said, I don't follow the issues in the website nearly as closely as other things. And so I thought maybe I was missing something, and I in fact was, because I didn't realize that line about the PR was only for the section about contributing to the website. I had apparently overlooked that. So my bad on that. But I think this is kind of the main. I think you said what I mainly wanted to say was, like, do we have folks, that are able to do the mentoring? Because if not, then I think it's difficult to bring on new people no matter what. It doesn't matter what the situation is. You need somebody who's there to help work through issues and make sure things are consistently, even if there's one-off contributions, like you said, John, with their, like, just improving things here and there. You need somebody who's got, like, the bigger picture in their head, right? And I would suggest, or I would encourage you all to try to find that, so that you can, be guiding people as you onboard them. Like, I'd say onboard these people personally. That's my opinion, is say, bring them, add them as committers. Rand didn't even really need to ask, by the way. The other thing is, like, if you all agree, you just agree. I mean, it can be an issue, but, like, once you all agree, you can just do it. You all have rights. You have the proper GitHub permissions to do it. So just keep, chugging along. But I think the main thing is that I would definitely encourage you to have that bigger vision of, like, what are the big initiatives we care about? Where are we going here? Because that's going to make a difference in a lot of these smaller decisions, I think, along the way.
yeah, and I mean, maybe Sebastian has that greater vision too, and I haven't synced with him to talk about it, so I don't know. That's just what I see when I look into the website since becoming a captain of it, basically. So, but yeah, I agree. I think with a lot of things, that's what we need. we need some vision for a lot of the specific changes. This is one of the crazy things about our project, is just there's so many fucking repos. There's so many repos. So there's a lot going on. Basically, it's easy to lose track of what's happening. But the point is, yeah, we have, potentially every package is a contributing.md. Most of them don't need it, or they should be inheriting from the top level one at the org level. But for the website, yeah, we do need a little bit more explanation of how it works, basically. So, but yeah, I just lost my train of thought while talking. But
to wrap it up, though, I think the answer is, like, yeah, onboard new folks as you like, and these people are doing good work, and as long as we're just careful and giving good feedback, all of the risk and worry.
Yep.
And
I want to jump. Oh, go ahead. I'll jump in actually behind Chris. Sorry.
I was just going to note that we have 5 minutes remaining and some other items on the agenda. So if we felt comfortable moving, but that was all.
They want to make Express by the default. Wants to know approximately when Express will become the default. Okay. Sebastian had a good message in there. What else? Let me pull up the agenda again.
Should we make that the next topic? I mean, we only have 5 minutes.
Which one?
Yeah.
Sebastian's about Express 5, because I think there was an issue tracking this. And it seemed to me that last time I looked, everything was ready. Is that correct?
I don't know where that issue is tracking that. We did have one. Yeah, I forget actually where it is. We did have one for latest or something.
I think the long poll on when Express became the default was a function of two things, if I recall correctly. A, soak time and making sure we didn't create a bunch of bugs that we needed to patch for early adopters who were willing to take the risk. And B was documentation. B was making sure that when people go to the Express website and that they're not looking at code that does not work in V5 in all of the examples and all of that. Those were the two things that came to mind. I don't know if there was any other parts of that.
Do you remember where that issue was though? Because I'm looking for it and I can't seem to find it.
Can you be, can you elaborate on what issue you're like?
Tagging latest.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, um,
I
you
forget
don't
where
have
it
an
was. We
issue?
discussed. I don't know. I'm not sure if we did or not. We discussed it at a meeting, and I remember the notes takeaway from that was docs. So I think that might be the final hurdle, is just to us confidently say.
It might be this backlog issue. Backlog
also-
Express 5.x, perhaps.
There's also this one that I just linked to. So, okay, so maybe what the next step there is actually to make an official, like, go through all these issues and make an official recommendation. Like, we are ready. We think we're ready. Right? Because it looks like even if you look at the backlog and the one I linked, it is the one I was thinking of because I think we were talking about types and docs and all that stuff's been updated. But it seems
I
like
think
it needs to go through and just do it like, yeah, we did. We achieved those goals. We're ready.
Yeah, we need to shake through the docs specifically with the eye of like looking for anything that stands out that is wrong or incomplete or whatever. So if when we look under API reference, we've had the 5.x docs there listed for a long time, I believe, and so we still have that there. But yeah, I think we need to just actually go through the docs, make sure, basically prove out, like, is there anything holding us back? If there is, what is it? What are those things? We'll write them down and get them fixed, basically. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
So,
I think tagging latest is probably our biggest priority. It's my biggest one priority specifically.
what if we try to shoot for like after the holidays, like early in January for that? Do you think
I think that makes sense. In terms of people's availability and all that, yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So, Sebastian, did they ask did they say what's holding them back from just using it? I know it's not marked as latest, but like they can make Next.js just depend on V5 with a Semver range. So I'm wondering, did they give you any info on what they were worried about?
No, solo dijeron que lo que quieren hacer es por defecto Express, pero no, nada más.
Okay.
I don't have translations set up. That's crazy.
Oh, he said no. I don't know. Ulysses, are you around? I wasn't sure if you were fully.
I get the gist. I'm reading the comment too from the guy. So
Yeah. Oh, is there a comment? Oh, did I miss the?
yeah, Sebastian's last link.
Oh, it's the same link that I sent to. It's just the last comment that I missed. I can reply to this. I'll reply to this and just say, as long as everybody's comfortable with that, say we're just shooting for early January. We'll be doing a cleanup and making sure that everything's good, but that they can rely on V5 in their release today without it being a problem.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Does that trigger any of our stuff around LTS? That probably would be our official LTS start date for V5 then. Once we get that policy cleaned up, which is also still pending.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, that would start our clock, I believe.
So that's probably a good thing. Yeah. Because that's been necessary. And the quicker we start the clock, the sooner V4 is gone. So.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we can work toward that. I'll try to carve out some time here in the next couple weeks to try to look at wrangling together a bunch of these separate threads on what still needs to be done and add it probably to Ulysses' backlog issue would probably be the best place. But I think everything's done, so we should probably be good for that. We just don't want to do it before the holidays because that requires a bunch of extra work for some people. So,
yep. Okay.
And for us, we don't want it to be dealing with bug reports over the holidays. So.
I had a final thing that was related to just some what we were talking about branch protections and stuff like that. On a different note, basically too, where I've been thinking through the idea of like, visibility into the repo and all that stuff. I know people at various times have built various dashboards with, to seeing our PRs and all that stuff. But I was trying to find one which was basically like, I'm building something at least for myself. I can share out probably soon, but it's like a bake time thing. Just basically like what is ready to merge in the GitHub UI, as in it's approved, it passes whatever protection there is. And it's literally just sitting there in that period that we say we have, in the 36-hour period of courtesy, to give people time to chime in, et cetera, et cetera. I think just having a dash of like stuff in the bake period, like look now if this is going to merge otherwise. So like, give your comment if you can, whatever, for stuff like that, I think will be useful. But when I did that, I realized, oh, there's a bunch of repos that don't have any kind of protection or enforcement for merges. So I think that's something it's a topic we can figure out or whatever, but like we have a bunch of small projects that they don't have to pass status, they don't have to have reviews, stuff like that. And so making that list that I'm talking about, it surfaced a bunch of other things, like Multer is an example. Multer, it goes immediately to ready to merge. Basically, there's no required reviewers. There's no has to pass CI. I'm not sure that there is CI on Multer, but yeah, I'm super down to apply like from an organization wide or whatever protections to the projects in terms of expressing when something, or rather, let's put it this way. What I'm talking about is governance as code. So like if we have this governance where in order to merge a change, you need a PR, you need it to pass CI, you need it to have one other reviewer from somebody with right or whatever. I think that's all in our governance, maybe not the CI specifically. Code as governance, we can have GitHub reflect that so that, ready to merge will pop up when it passes whatever is in our governance doc, basically, minus like the bake period of 36 hours or whatever. We don't have to go as hardcore as enforcing that in the GitHub UI, although we could. But yeah. Yeah, I don't. What do you guys think about that? Because the state of things currently is that we don't have all the repos set up with those kinds of rules and stuff. So go ahead, Ulysses.
I love the idea, especially the idea of visualizing what PRs are going to be like landed soon, because I think that even with the current GitHub notification is a challenge. Even for a project like Node.js, where you have some million labels that are automatically validated or whatever, it's still hard to know what is going to be landed. So you don't have the way to prioritize, right? So it's challenging. So that's 100% idea that I love, and also will help us to, solve some of the discussions that we have recently about when to land things or not, depending on criticality, and that might be sometimes hard to be super objective, right? Because depends on the changes that we do. So I think I like this idea a lot. Regarding of the stuff that the organization doesn't have like realigned, because there's like some repos with different rules, some organizations with different rules and stuff like that. For those who doesn't know, there is an initiative ongoing from the OpenSSF, from the OpenJS Foundation, that is called the Security Programs Standards. I'm actually building the website of this. Most of the stuff that you commented, John, is already included here. Like, I know, enable second factor authentication in GitHub, having people with at least 6 months of activity that has write access. I know, like tons of things like that, and including branch protection and then having the option to remove the main branch, a lot of things like that, right? So we're in a state that we already defined the rules. I mean, what the stuff we're supposed to track on the project. We discussed this previously in the last security working group for us. And right now I'm working on the dashboard, which is the tool that is going to actually do these checks for all of us. I'm using Express as the project to check this out, and I discover a lot of fancy things ongoing. So yeah, one of the things is that, so the mapping of these kind of things is going to be there. The next thing is one of the things that I'm discussing now with the people is if we should have like a mitigation scripts in place. So for example, if you don't have a branch protection for that for a specific repositories, you can just run a bash script that will do all the HTTP requests against the GitHub API to enforce that rule, and the same going for many other things, like kind of an auto fix kind of things, right? So that's the idea. I need to see like how comfortable maintainers are feeling with running this kind of scripts. Very similar way as the Node.js core utilities that we have, this NCU that we use for everything, but it's not that common in other projects, right? So the idea is to see if other maintainers are willing to use these kind of tools, but this will be helping us with a lot of mitigation. Saying that, this is not going to cover anything related to PRs that are going to be landed anyway. So John, if you want to work on that, that will be fantastic. If you want to join forces with me in this fantastic universe of the dashboard, you're more than welcome. Actually, I'm going to do like an onboarding session soon. And the same for the rest of you. Anyone who wants to join and help me add in some checks and stuff like that would be fantastic. And that's all for my promo. Undercover promo on this.
I didn't know I was unmuted. Cool. All right. Well, we're over time. But I just wanted to mention that of like I noticed because that's the thing. I have the perms to go and change stuff like that. I don't know that I'm going to do that right now or need to or whatever. But I did notice that there are a number of projects we have where everything goes ready to merge. So we can decide if that's appropriate or not, basically. I like if it would be great if everything had like our rules into it, because like I can go at length at some point another time about like I'm reusing some of my things I learned in the nonprofit world when I was like running a nonprofit of like you have the idea of the consent agenda. Uncontroversial things get added to the consent agenda at the beginning of a meeting. They pass as a slate, but you circulate what is on the consent agenda ahead of time so people can say at any time you say no, I want to discuss this, let's take it off. It's supposed to be for really uncontroversial stuff like meeting minutes approvals, routine approval stuff. But it would be cool if we had the idea of like, hey, once a week we're going to merge the stuff with this label, which is like consent queue, and like check if you want to have input on these things that have already been approved and they're just in bake time, and a maintainer put this tag on it, then give input before or remove the tag or whatever before Friday when it merges or whatever like that. That's auto merging is a little out of scope entirely for what I'm talking about, but like that idea of being able to say, hey, we have a period of requests for comment or whatever, like input, because we have a lot of PRs that are open that have been approved by a maintainer but have not been merged yet. So just trying to clear the queue on stuff like that, or at least separate out like, hey, no, this is good to go. Like this can merge now. Like just somebody needs to hit the button, basically. So cool. Okay. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about right now? Otherwise, we can drop. Otherwise, I'm going to drop. Let's put it that way. Cool. All right. I'm going to get out of here. I will talk to you guys later. Cheers.
Y'all.